Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started.
Rikishi sent a cryptic message on social media. The real-life Bloodline member teased a potential betrayal between Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Sikoa lost the Ula to Roman Reigns on Raw's Netflix premiere. Until last week's SmackDown, the Street Champion only made one appearance since losing to the OTC. His status as the leader of the new Bloodline also remains in question, considering how Fatu and Tama Tonga have been taking care of business in his absence. Recently, Rikishi shared a gif of Fatu acknowledging Sikoa on X, FKA Twitter. The Samoan werewolf has been loyal to the now former tribal chief since debuting in June 2024 and has been vocal about his love for Sikoa. The gif could be a potential hint at a betrayal. Fatu could question Sikoa's credibility after he lost to Reigns. The WWE Universe also loves it when the Samoan werewolf takes the mic. See how Fatu is finding his footing on the roster. It might be time for him to step out of Solo's shadow. Maybe that is what Rikishi is trying to convey with his tweet. Sam Roberts wants Solo Sikoa to face Jacob Fatu at WrestleMania 41. Solo Sikoa attacked Cody Rhodes upon his return to WWE television on last week's SmackDown. He could challenge the American Nightmare once again for the undisputed WWE Championship. However, Jacob Fatu also has his sights set on the title, as he told Jey Uso that he wouldn't be the one to bring the title back to the family. Speaking on the Not Some Wrestling podcast, Roberts suggested a potential scenario that could lead to Sikoa vs Fatu at the grandest stage of them all. He said, "Maybe you'd do Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa vs Braun Strowman and Cody Rhodes. Maybe we'll do the tag match, and when Solo eats the pin Jacob will lose faith. Maybe, we won't even get that far, before Jacob tells Solo the same thing Jacob told Jey Uso. But either way, I think we are headed for a collision. I hope this all leads to Jacob Fatu vs Solo Sikoa at WrestleMania." The fan can expect a lot to unfold on the upcoming edition of WWE SmackDown upon Sikoa's return. Amid his absence, Fatu has been feuding with Braun Strowman and also made a huge statement in the 2025 Men's Royal Rumble match by eliminating 4 superstars. The air surrounding the Bloodline was already tense, but Rikishi's latest cryptic message had sent shockwaves through the WWE universe. With Roman Reigns absent from WWE television, Solo Sikoa had taken command of the faction, making bold moves, including recruiting Jacob Fatu into the fold. However, the Samoan legend Rikishi, Solo's own father, had just hinted at an imminent betrayal between the two powerhouses, leaving fans speculating about what lay ahead. The message that started it all. It all started with a single tweet from Rikishi. "A king without his sword is just a man. Beware the hands that hold the blade. #Bloodline #Samoan Dynasty." This seemingly innocent message had WWE fans dissecting every word. Was he warning Solo about Jacob Fatu? Was he hinting that Jacob might be planning to betray his younger cousin? Or was it the other way around? Was Solo planning to dispose of Jacob before he became a threat? The wrestling world was abuzz with speculation, and tensions within the Bloodline were about to explode. Solo Sikoa, the enforcer turned leader. Since Roman Reigns' absence, Solo Sikoa had transformed from the Bloodline's silent enforcer into its de facto leader. While Jey Uso had tried to keep things together, Solo had other plans. He wanted to mold the Bloodline in his own vision, one where strength ruled and no one questioned his decisions. Jacob Fatu's arrival had been a game-changer. The 6 feet 2 inches, 280-pound Samoan beast was a wrecking machine with an unmatched mean streak. When Solo introduced him to the WWE Universe, he was meant to be the faction's war dog, the unstoppable force who would crush anyone who dared stand against the Bloodline. But Jacob was not a follower. He was a leader in his own right, having dominated MLW before joining WWE. He wasn't afraid to fight for his spot, and that was where the trouble began. Jacob Fatu vs Solo Sikoa, tension brewing. The tension between Solo and Jacob wasn't obvious at first, but it became clearer with each passing week. It started subtly, Jacob staring a little too long at Solo after matches, his expression unreadable. Then came the small moments of defiance, Jacob refusing to back down when Solo gave him orders, standing his ground during face-offs with their enemies. Things escalated when Solo, in a fit of rage, slapped Jey Uso after a failed tag match. Jacob had stepped in, standing between them, his nostrils flaring. The WWE Universe had gasped as the two men locked eyes, neither backing down. Solo eventually backed off, but the message was clear, Jacob Fatu would not be bullied. That moment had sent shockwaves through the wrestling world, and Rikishi's cryptic message only added fuel to the fire. Paul Heyman's growing concern. Paul Heyman, the Bloodline's strategic genius, had always been the voice of reason within the faction. With Roman Reigns gone, he had been walking on eggshells, trying to keep Solo in check while also recognizing Jacob's potential. After Rikishi's tweet, Heyman was visibly distressed. On SmackDown, cameras caught him in a hushed conversation with Solo backstage. "Listen to me, my tribal enforcer. If you sense a threat, you must neutralize it before it grows out of control." Solo's response was chillingly calm. "I know exactly what I need to do." Later that night, Jacob Fatu was scheduled to face Kevin Owens in a brutal street fight. Solo was at ringside, watching closely. The match was a war, with both men pushing their bodies to the limit. Jacob ultimately secured the victory after putting Owens through a table with a Samoan spike, Solo's own move. The moment the match ended, Solo entered the ring. Instead of celebrating with Jacob, he stepped inches away from his cousin's face. The crowd could feel the tension, and when Jacob smirked, almost mockingly, it became clear. The war was coming. Rikishi breaks his silence. As rumors swirled about an impending civil war within the Bloodline, Rikishi was invited onto the bump to address his cryptic tweet. When asked what he meant, Rikishi simply smiled and said, "In this family, you're either the predator or the prey. Solo and Jacob? They both want to lead. But only one of them is willing to do what it takes to sit at the head of the table." The statement sent chills down everyone's spine. It wasn't just a warning, it was a prophecy. The Bloodline implodes on SmackDown. The WWE Universe didn't have to wait long to see the fallout. The following SmackDown opened with Solo Sikoa calling out Jacob Fatu. "We ain't gotta pretend no more," Solo growled into the mic. "You look at me like you want my spot. I see it in your eyes. You think you should be running this family. So if that's what you really feel, do something about it." Jacob Fatu stormed to the ring, his face unreadable. He didn't say a word. Instead, he stepped nose to nose with Solo, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. And then, out of nowhere, Jacob Fatu extended his hand. The crowd was stunned. Was Jacob offering peace? Or was this a setup? Solo looked down at the hand, his jaw clenching. And then, he took it. But just as their hands clasped, Solo yanked Jacob forward and drove a knee into his gut. The crowd erupted in shock as Solo unleashed a brutal assault, stomping Jacob into the mat. Jim Uso and Tama Tonga rushed down to break it up, but Solo shoved them aside. As he prepared to hit Jacob with a steel chair, Rikishi's music hit. The WWE Hall of Famer walked down to the ring, his face a mask of disappointment. He stepped between his son and his nephew, shaking his head. "This ain't how we handle family, Solo," Rikishi said, his voice low but firm. "You let your ego run wild, you destroy everything your blood built." Solo gritted his teeth, gripping the chair tightly. Then, in a moment that left the WWE Universe speechless, Solo dropped the chair and embraced Rikishi. For a moment, it seemed like things had calmed. And then, boom! Solo superkicked Rikishi. The audience gasped in horror as Rikishi crumbled to the mat. Jacob Fatu exploded with rage, tackling Solo and unleashing a flurry of punches. The brawl spilled to the outside, security rushing in to separate them. Paul Heyman, watching from the ramp, held his head in his hands. The Bloodline had just torn itself apart. What happens next? With Rikishi betrayed, Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu were officially at war. The WWE Universe now questioned who would take sides. Would Jimmy Uso back Solo, or would he side with Jacob? Would Roman Reigns return to restore order? And most importantly, had Rikishi foreseen all of this from the start? The battle for the Bloodline had begun. And only one warrior would stand tall when the dust settled.